The only thing I'm trying to do is just try to find out who my baby father is. Because he's 43 years old, he don't want to work.
But you slept with him without protection.
Yeah, I did.
So at this point, the insults are irrelevant.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm not saying he is my father. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just here to find out. And I was 11 years old, and it took 5 minutes to get in contact with him. So you telling me it took you 21 years to find me? How was it that hard? So you must have not been searching.
This story starts wild and stays wild. Ms. Johnson says Mr. Rice is her baby's dad, but Mr. Rice is like, nope, not me. And just like that, we're off to a drama-filled start.
You have summoned the defendant to court today to prove that he fathered your 6-month-old son, Jeremiah.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are furious that he never met your baby and plan prove paternity today. Mr. Rice, you say you are 100% certain you are not her child's biological father, and you claim to know who is.
It all began after a breakup, a rebound, and a lot of drama. Ms. Johnson and Mr. Rice got too friendly, and suddenly, a baby was on the way. It's already messy, and trust me, it gets juicier.
I want to say June, the end of June, me and my boyfriend, we broke up. I was in my feelings, so I took comfort in Mr. Rice. We were friends prior to that. It went further than expected. We had sex, and I found out I was pregnant in September.
Ms. Johnson found out she was pregnant at the doctor's office. She thought Mr. Rice would be thrilled, but he was more, wait what, than yay. And from here, things spiraled into doubt and accusations.
I had just a regular doctor's appointment. I wasn't feeling good, and when I got in there, she was like, "You're pregnant." And at first I was in shock. Like, I was freaking out, like, okay, I'm pregnant. Me and Mr. Rice had already talked about, he said he wanted kids, and I didn't think it was a problem. I thought he would be happy that I was pregnant. And he was happy. Then I just...
Mr. Rice was excited at first until Ms. Johnson said it might be her ex's baby. And once that doubt started, it grew fast. Let's just say trust didn't last long here.
Yes, I was excited about it until she decided to tell me it could be her ex's baby or it could be my baby.
How did she tell you?
I had left my phone in my brother's car. I was at school, and he came and told me about it. And then I got on the phone with her, and she told me.
So how did he tell you it was on your phone?
Because she was calling my phone.
Oh, she was
I messaged his friend.
Ms. Johnson revealed she got an STD, and Mr. Rice was like, excuse me? He tested negative, which only made him doubt more. And yes, it's about to get even more awkward.
I go to about 1 doctor's appointment with her, and after that, she tells me she has an STD. But the doctor calls me the next day and tells me, "Sir, you don't have an STD at all."
That doesn't make sense to me at all, Your Honor. I wasn't having sex with anybody but him during the time. So there was no way that he didn't have it because I wasn't sleeping with anybody else.
Mr. Rice says the pregnancy timeline doesn't add up. Ms. Johnson told him one thing, but the baby's birth date didn't match. He's definitely not buying her story at this point.
Because when she told me she was a month pregnant, it was in October. The baby was supposed to be born in June. The baby was born in April.
Oh, the timeline was off from the conception date she gave you.
When she goes to the doctor and find out how long she is, if she was 2 months pregnant, it would be James' baby. But if she was 1 month pregnant, it would be my baby. And she told me out of her own mouth.
In walks Ms. Johnson's ex, Mr. Williams, ready to stir things up. He's been acting like the dad, but isn't sure if he actually is. Now we've got 2 possible dads and 1 big question.
When we got back together like September, I've been there since day 1. Like doctor's appointments.
You and Ms. Johnson were still sleeping together during the time they were sleeping together because she admitted she got an STD. Did you have one that you could pass to her?
No, ma'am. Because we had took a test too, I didn't have it.
You did not have it?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson admits she had feelings for her ex the whole time. She also told Mr. Williams that Mr. Rice was the dad. If you think that clears things up, it doesn't.
Who did she tell you was the father of the child?
Mr. Rice.
I was angry at him because of a situation that we had went through before we broke up. So no, I didn't want him to be the father.
You admit you thought at some point that there was a real possibility you were the child's biological father.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still in the back of your mind think that way, despite what she tells you?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rice says he tried multiple times to get a DNA test, but Ms. Johnson kept dodging him. He even offered to pay, but she ghosted him every time. It's like a never-ending game of hide and seek.
And she told me I could come up there and I could get my DNA test done. But maybe an hour or so later, she decides to text me and call me back. The DNA test people were not in the building. So I said, okay, she said you should come tomorrow on a Saturday. This was a Friday when he was born. So I called myself while I was still at work. She says, you can get a DNA test done, but I don't have $200 to $400 to pay for it. I said, I'll pay for it.
The baby's middle name is Samaj, which is James spelled backward, a nod to her ex. Ms. Johnson says it's credit for helping out, but Mr. Rice is not having it. No extra credit here, he says.
Jeremiah is 6 months old.
Yes, Your Honor.
He has your last name.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I did notice when I looked at the birth certificate, baby Jeremiah that has a middle name, Simaj, which is James.
I felt like since he was there from day one that he should get some kind of credit for, being there and taking care of him. I didn't feel like that was a problem.
The DNA results are in.
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Rice. You are the father.
This story kicks off with a bang. Mr. Lewis has been waiting 44 years to prove Mr. McAllister is his dad, but Mr. McAllister isn't convinced. The rumors are messy, and trust me, it's only getting messier from here. Stay tuned for the drama.
Mr. Lewis, you say you've always known the defendant is your father and say his paternity denials are mere excuses as to why he was not there for you. You hope today's results put an end to this 44-year-old mystery.
Mr. Lewis pours his heart out about growing up without a dad in South Central LA. It's sad stuff. You can tell it still stings, but it's not over yet. Mr. McAllister's side will flip everything upside down.
How has Mr. McAllister's denial affected you?
Well, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, it was tough not having a father there. Knowing that you have one, just different things that went on through my life that, not having a man there to answer different questions, it made things a lot tough for me coming up, but thank God that everything worked out.
If you think it's messy, it gets worse. Mr. McAllister heard all kinds of wild rumors, like it might even be his cousin Michael. And at one point, Mr. Lewis's mom said his dad was dead. Cousin? Dead? Alive? It's like a chaotic soap opera.
I traveled to Los Angeles back in '81, and I ran into a relative of the family. This individual told me that their relative had my son. I got the information and I called Mrs. Lewis and I asked her, do we need to talk about something? And she said, no. I said, what about your son? What's going on there? I heard XY. I said, his dad is dead. She said, yes, his dad is dead.
Mr. Lewis took up football to avoid trouble and stay on the right track. He thinks his mom lied about his dad being dead to protect him. Honestly, you can see why she did it, but what happens next is going to blow your mind.
It was tough, growing up, thank God I gravitated to football because there were opportunities to get into gangs being in South Central Los Angeles. My mother, she protected me because I'm sure there was opportunities that she let him know. When she told him, and I'm not sure if she did say that, but actually my mother, if she did say he was dead, it was to protect me because we had already moved.
Years later, Mr. McAllister hears someone might be his son. He meets Mr. Lewis, who's 16 at the time. Sweet, right? Not really. Mr. Lewis thinks Mr. McAllister only showed up because he's a good football player. Drama level, maximum.
When I finally found out about that there was a possibility here, I reached out to him and I told him I was going to be coming to Los Angeles and I would like to meet him. He was 16 at the time. I just wanted to get to know him. I wanted him to get to know me. Because of a credible friend of mine that I dated for years told me that there was a gentleman that was looking for me, saying that I was his father.
Moment of truth.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. McAllister, you are the father.
Ms. Hicks kicks things off like a soap opera, saying this DNA test will save her relationship and prove Mr. Smith is the dad of baby Honesty. She's super confident, swearing she knows who the dad is. Buckle up, this is just the start of the drama.
Ms. Hicks, you say the sins of your past have brought you into court today to save your relationship. You are petitioning the court for a DNA test to prove that the defendant is the father of your 3-month-old daughter, Honesty.
Ms. Hicks is furious. She says she feels betrayed, especially since her sister is siding with Mr. Smith. She insists she only ever slept with Mr. Smith, and all these claims are making her mad. The drama's only getting started.
I know I've only slept with him, and I know who my children belong to. Hearing this from him and him getting it from my own bloody sister, it just bores me.
Tell the truth.
So,
I got something to say. She's telling false lies, okay? I know for a fact that he was not the only one she was
I guess you're there in the same bed with me when I'm sleeping with these people, I guess.
Mr. Smith pulls out medical records showing he has hypogonadism, which supposedly means he can't have kids. The court takes a good look at it and science seems on his side, but Ms. Hicks isn't backing down. She's ready to prove her point.
I used to work out a lot, and one time strained myself too hard and I had to go to the hospital, and the doctor told me that I couldn't have kids, that my testicles had dropped by that time.
Male hypogonadism is a condition in which the body doesn't produce enough testosterone or has an impaired ability to produce sperm or both.
Ms. Hicks isn't buying it. She says, just look at Honesty. She's proof enough. She calls Mr. Mr. Smith's story ridiculous and insists the baby is the best evidence. Things are heating up with cheating accusations coming next.
2 months after Honesty was born, like, she's living proof that you can have kids. I didn't make this baby myself.
Mr. Smith, you seem confident. She knows good and well that it's not your child.
Yes, Your Honor.
And why do you think she knows that?
I told her once her son was born, she was cheating a lot of time with multiple men.
Mr. Smith claims Ms. Hicks wasn't loyal, bringing text messages as proof. The crowd gasps as the drama shifts from a baby to trust and lies. But wait, Ms. Hicks's sister is about to make things even worse.
I went through her phone and found text messages, and it said when I can get that kitty cat.
Oh, the other guy said, I miss that kitty cat. And Ms. Hicks responded, you know he leaves, so you can come over anytime.
Yes, Your Honor.
Saw this message and you feel like she was definitely sleeping around.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Hicks's sister Carlicia steps up, saying Ms. Hicks was with other guys. Ms. Hicks loses it, accusing her sister of lying to ruin her life. Just when you think it can't get worse, an expert arrives to clear things up.
Your Honor, I bet you don't even remember when he went to his grandma's house because they got into it. She had another man coming in the bed, sleeping in his bed. You hear me? Over there for 2 days.
Do you remember?
I did not have I did not have another man there. I know who my child belongs to. I know who every one of my children belongs to.
Dr. Gator explains hypogonadism, saying it doesn't mean Mr. Smith can't have kids, it just makes it harder. Suddenly, Mr. Smith's argument looks shaky. You know what that means. DNA test time.
So hypogonadism is when the body doesn't produce enough testosterone. You can either be born with it or you can develop it later in life. Usually from things like infection, injury to the testicles can also cause it. Nature gives us 2 testicles, and so usually it has to be a bound injury to not one, but both testicles to actually cause hypogonadism.
The DNA test reveals
it has been determined by this court. Mr. Smith, you are the father.
This story kicks off with 3 possible dads, 1 confused mom, and a 2-year-old stuck in the middle. Miss Hatcher had relationships with 3 guys around the time her son was conceived, and she's here to find the real dad. The drama is already so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. Brace yourselves.
Ms. Hatcher, you confessed that at the time you conceived your 2-year-old son, Josiah, you had sexual relations with 3 men. Now, you don't want your son to suffer for your mistakes, so you've requested paternity testing on all 3 men.
Miss Hatcher drops a reality TV level timeline, dating all 3 men at once, and using a color-coded calendar to explain it. Just as everyone's piecing it together, Mr. Scott butts in with a rude comment that gets him a verbal smackdown from the judge. The chaos is real, and it's about to get messier.
At the time, I had sex with 3 different men around the same time my son conceived. I did have a 5.5-month fling with Mr. Scott.
No, Your Honor, that is not true. It was just sex, period.
That's what a fling is.
Not to me.
And I had a one-night stand with him around the time. And I also had a one-night stand with Mr. Blake.
Mr. Scott throws out another disrespectful comment, and the judge shuts him down immediately. The courtroom erupts with gasps, applause, and some serious side-eye from Miss Hatcher. Just when it seems like it might calm down, Mr. Scott's attitude shows there's more drama coming.
Did you use protection?
No, we did not.
How much did he pay?
Excuse me, Mr. Scott? You're gonna be respectful in this courtroom.
He is very ignorant. He is just recently, he knows that we don't have a working refrigerator and a stove. And he comes over to my house and he still has the same attitude, nasty attitude that he has now.
Mr. Scott takes the stand and claims he stepped up as the dad, signing the birth certificate and buying diapers, until Miss Hatcher brought up a DNA test. He tries to sound like the good guy, but his frustration is showing. You can tell he's not done stirring the pot and things are only heating up.
And when she came and told me she was pregnant, I believed her, because she's a woman who knows her body, who's supposed to know her body, who knows what she does.
So when the baby was born, were you in the hospital?
Yes, ma'am. I was there for him.
And did you sign the birth certificate?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I have it right here. Taking care of the side, letting him come to my house on football Sundays. I watch.
That man is not doing any of that.
Mr. Blake walks in all calm, then admits to a one-night stand with Miss Hatcher and says the kid might be his. He mentions some booze blurring the details, and everyone laughs until Miss Hatcher says her son looks just like him. Now, people are comparing shoulders and feet like it's some weird family game.
We got a hotel room that night. Possibility it could be mine. If it's mine, I don't have a problem with taking care of mine.
Was it protect sex on that day?
We had a little alcohol, but I think so, Your Honor.
Well, first time we did use protection, and then the second time we didn't.
Your Honor, it wasn't no second time.
We had sex twice.
I only remember one time. I know I wasn't that drunk, Your Honor.
Miss Hatcher points out her son's physical traits, saying he's built like Mr. Blake, broad shoulders and flat feet included. Mr. Blake looks like he's hearing this for the first time and can't decide if he's amused or horrified. The spotlight shifts to Mr. Sneed, but it's still a circus.
He could could be a possibility because the way my son is built, the way he's growing up.
How many people you got to test before you find out?
Okay, well,
as many as it takes in this courtroom. You say your son, you feel like he's built like Mr. Blake.
Well, he got broad shoulders like Mr. Blake. You know, his hands are thick, his feet are flat. I really don't know Mr. Blake that well.
Mr. Sneed isn't even in court, but his name gets dragged back in as Miss Hatcher compares her son's flat feet to his. The crowd's connecting dots faster than a kid with a puzzle. The calendar just adds to the confusion, and you know this drama isn't done.
He has flat feet like Mr. Sneed.
I thought he had the flat feet.
The only thing I'm trying to do is just try to find out who my baby father is. Because he's 43 years old, he don't want to work.
But you slept with him without protection.
Yeah, I did.
So at this point, the insults are irrelevant.
Yeah, it is.
The results are in, and it's like waiting for your mom to check your report card. Thick suspense.
When it comes to Mr. Scott, you are the...
This story kicks off with family drama. Adriana Tucker wants Charles Hunter to admit he's her dad, but Charles isn't convinced. It's awkward, and it's only getting wilder from here.
Miss Tucker, you believed another man was your dad until a bomb was dropped on you 10 years ago when your mother admitted that the defendant is your biological father. You opened your case to prove to Mr. Hunter that he is your dad.
Adriana just wants Charles to take a DNA test and end the mystery. She's tired of being her own detective, and when her mom explains why she lied, it's completely bananas.
I have been trying to get Charles to do a DNA test with me twice. I scheduled a test, he didn't show up, and it's just a lot of fusion in my own mind, and it's very traumatic to me. I'm trying to figure out if he's my father or not to close this chapter in my life, because I grew up thinking someone else was my father.
Adriana's mom admits she lied about who her dad was, thinking Charles wasn't dad material. Adriana feels like she's missing out on her own story, and things are about to get even crazier.
Told her that someone else was her father at the time in order to protect her. I felt like Mr. Hunter was not a good role model.
Or what, she had a better chance of having a father in her life?
No, Your Honor, that's not the reason why. I was dating this guy, but it was basically over. At the end of the day, he wasn't good for her, and neither was Mr. Hunter's.
In 5th grade, Adriana overhears a phone call that flips her world. The man she thought was her dad denies it, leaving her confused. And middle school, total soap opera drama.
I was in the 5th grade, and his sister had came and got me one weekend like she always did. They were on the phone, and I was over listening to their conversation with her telling him that to meet me, she believed that I was his daughter, and it was my first time ever talking to him. I was really excited, and that's when he told me that my mom was not being honest with me.
A lady tells Adriana that Charles might be her dad, but her mom denies it. Adriana is left with questions, and Charles has his own surprising version of events to share.
I was in the 7th grade. Where we're from is very small, so I was at a store. There's a woman who knows them both, and she told me, she said, you look just like your dad. And so I go, oh, you know my dad? And I said his name, and she goes, that's not your dad. And that's when she said Mr. Hunter's name, and that was the first I have ever heard of him.
Charles says Adriana's mom told him he wasn't the dad, so he moved on. Years later, he hears rumors, but doesn't follow up. And then there's that time he showed up at Adriana's school.
Adrian told me she was pregnant.
So when she got pregnant, you were told?
And she told me the child wasn't mine.
And what was your relationship like with Miss Tucker?
Yeah, for a short while. She told me she was pregnant. She said the baby wasn't mine. I left and I got my life together. And I stayed gone for 15, 16 years. I came back to North Carolina hearing rumors that she was mine.
Charles pulls Adriana out of class to say, hey, I might be your dad. She's confused. And he later says it might have been a joke. Things only get messier from here.
I was in middle school, and the young woman that is like his daughter, and they called me out of class. And he told me who he was, and he told me that he was my dad. That's what he said.
What?
And I told him no, like I always have said, the other man was my dad. And just so happened, my mom still said no. And then we see him. I guess he had just moved back to town.
Adriana's aunt spills the tea in a car, saying Charles is the dad, while her mom tries to hush her. Adriana is stunned, and her mom finally admits the truth.
I was 23, and we were in the car with my aunt. They're a loving relationship, but my aunt's very vocal. Made the comment to my mom that she had not been truthful to me about who my dad was, and she needed to tell me the truth. My mom looked like she just looked like my aunt better keep her mouth shut.
Oh.
Turns out Charles used to date Adriana's aunt. Judge Lake points out how messy this all is, with Adriana stuck in the middle. And now we're heading to the DNA results.
Well, I had met a young lady. Come to find out it was Adrian's sister. And I thought that about that.
So you slept with her sister.
Did you know this?
This has nothing to do with my sister.
When I came back to Carolina, Adrian wouldn't speak to me. She wouldn't talk to me. She had nothing to do with me.
Mr. Hunter, you are not the father.
Jasmine finds out at 9 that the man she thought was her dad isn't, and her real dad is Cannon Little. Cannon denies it, talking timelines and all. It's a wild start, and things are only getting messier.
Ms. Degree, you say your whole world changed when you were just 9 years old, and your mother revealed to you that your dad was not biological father. She then told you Mr. Little was your father, yet claimed he's denied you ever since.
Yes, Your Honor.
Jasmine calls Mr. Little saying, "Hey, I think you're my dad," and he's like, "Nah, DNA test first." Her mom's not happy, thinking he should have been more understanding. It's awkward and about to get worse as Mr. Little pulls out some strange evidence.
So when I was about 11 years old, I got his number off a family member that's married to his family member. And I called him up on the phone and I told him who I was, who my mother was, and what I believe. And he told me that he don't know, he need a DNA test, he don't think so.
Mr. Little shows a 24-year-old calendar to prove he's not Jasmine's dad. Seriously, who keeps that? The dates don't add up, but nobody buys it. Things are weird, and the child support drama is heating up.
You got a calendar from 24 years ago?
Hey, listen,
wow.
baby, I do my homework.
You got a calendar from 24 years
Hey,
ago?
I do my homework.
Sure, you right.
All right.
What you did is you created a calendar.
Exactly.
To illustrate.
I created a calendar to illustrate, but 3 months later, she tell me she pregnant a month later. I don't know if she Houdini or what. How do you come up 3 months later?
Your evidence.
Mr. Little says he ended up on child support even though he was told Jasmine wasn't his. He claims court tried to test him, but Jasmine's mom didn't show. Jasmine's not convinced. She thinks he just cares about money.
I'm at work. HR came to me and said, you need to call this number. I call this number. They tell me they taking money out for Miss Degree. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. It's not my child. She done told me twice it wasn't mine. Now she got me on child support.
You should have wanted a blood test.
Hold up. I got that too, baby. I got that too. Hold up. I got the evidence right here. Hold up. I got this right here from the court, and they tried to get in contact with her.
Jasmine shares her side. She felt abandoned, especially since it took her 5 minutes to find Mr. Little when she was 11. She's not mad, just wants answers. Her brother then steps in to back her up.
He said he been searching or whatever like that because the child support. And I'm not saying he is my father. I'm not saying he not. I'm just here to find out. And I was 11 years old and it took 5 minutes to get in contact with him. So you telling me it took you 21 years to find me? How was it that hard? So you must have not been searching.
Corey, Jasmine's brother, talks about stepping up as a father figure and how Mr. Little hung up on Jasmine when she called at 11. He's not holding back, and it's about to get real with the DNA results.
For years, I've watched over my sister. You know, the male figure in her life that she looked up to, because my mom worked hard for us, and we had mostly everything we needed. It was times I didn't even want to say things about my father or that she had a hole in her because there was one. And that's what, like this photo, if you think about it, it's almost like, what if the test says he's not?
DNA results are in.
In the case of Degree B. Little, when it comes to the paternity of Ms. Jasmine Degree, Mr. Little, you are her father.